How do you maintain your car so that it lasts as long as possible and saves you money? That's what we're going to find out. Welcome to Car Help Corner, where we help you, the consumer, master the process of car buying and car ownership. I'm going to share the best maintenance steps to follow recommended by top mechanics that will help your car last as long as possible with minimal repair issues. These maintenance recommendations come from top reputable mechanics that were surveyed by the Automobile Consumer Coalition, the nonprofit organization I work with, which in most cases goes above and beyond what's recommended in your vehicle's owner's manual. Following the maintenance schedule in the owner's manual is okay at an absolute minimum, but the problem is that it often does not go far enough if you want your vehicle to last upwards of 10 to 15 years without having any major failures. So how should you maintain your car? Should you take your car to a dealership or independent shop? And how do you prevent being upsold and paying more money on service than you should be paying? We're going to get into all of that, starting with maintenance. And let's begin with one of the biggest maintenance items, which is oil changes. The mechanics surveyed were in general agreement that the safest oil change interval for most vehicles is every 5,000 to 6,000 miles or every 8,000 to 10,000 kilometers at the most. For the average vehicle owner, this will mean changing your oil roughly every 6 months, or for high mileage drivers, every 3 to 4 months. And if you're a very low mileage driver and you don't drive enough to reach 5,000 miles or 8,000 kilometers per year, then you should change your engine oil at least once per year. Always use manufacturer-approved oil and oil filters for your car, and always keep your receipts and service records for documentation. This topic is often debated because most manufacturers today have oil change intervals recommended in their owner's manuals that are stretched far further than that, sometimes over 10,000 miles or over 16,000 kilometers, which is fine if you just want your vehicle to make it to the end of the warranty without having issues. But if you want your vehicle to last upwards of 10 to 15 years and not have a major failure, a more frequent oil change interval is the safest way to go. As many mechanics say, changing oil is cheap, replacing an engine is not. The next maintenance item, which should not be overlooked, is your transmission. Like the engine, transmissions are very expensive to replace when they fail, so maintaining them with appropriate fluid changes is a smart move for long-term owners. Many vehicles today come with what manufacturers call lifetime transmission fluid, with sealed transmissions that never need to be serviced, which again is fine if you just want your vehicle to make it to the end of the warranty. But if you want to keep your vehicle as long as possible and prevent costly transmission failure, then you need to change the fluid at a reasonable interval, roughly every 50 to 60,000 miles or every 80 to 100,000 kilometers using manufacturer-approved fluid. And if you have a transmission that's known for being somewhat fragile, consider changing the fluid at an even shorter interval. Now, this can be a very costly service, but considering how expensive it is to replace a transmission after it fails, this is really good peace of mind and preventative maintenance. And if you have a vehicle that has all-wheel drive, you're also going to need to service the fluid that comes in the differentials and the all-wheel drive transfer case. These fluids should be changed roughly at the same time as the transmission fluid, or at least every 30,000 miles or 50,000 kilometers using manufacturer-approved fluids. And maintaining these important driveline components will help prevent expensive failures in the long run. And another really important fluid that's important to stay on top of, that would be coolant. The cooling system is designed to help keep the engine and sometimes other important drivetrain components in good shape, and the fluid should be changed at an appropriate interval. This should be done roughly every 4 to 5 years using manufacturer-approved fluid. Brake fluid is another one that should be checked and changed every few years. Normally every 3 to 4 years is a fine interval for a brake fluid flush. So in general, clean fluids are extremely important for any vehicle's longevity. So whenever you have your vehicle taken to a dealer or a service shop for any kind of maintenance, make sure that all the fluids are up to date, and make sure to use manufacturer approved fluids and keep all your documentation and receipts just in case. Now, moving on to the next major maintenance item that you need to be aware of, and that would be filters. There are a number of important filters that should be checked. These include the engine air filter, the cabin air filter, the fuel filter, and on some hybrid vehicles, a hybrid battery filter. Filters should be checked at each service visit, and they should be changed as needed when they are dirty or clogged. And then we have the less frequent but still extremely expensive maintenance items that need to be done regularly every few years or so, and these include the engine spark plugs and any engine drive belts. Replacing these items is normally done every 50 to 60,000 miles or every 80 to 100,000 kilometers, but could be required more frequently depending on the vehicle. And if your vehicle has a timing belt for the engine instead of a timing chain, this will also need to be done at the appropriate interval, which should be very similar. And there are additional maintenance items that should be checked by the mechanic when your vehicle is taken in for service, but will only need to be replaced when they're worn out. These include your tires, your brakes, and any suspension-related components. All of these are wear items that will eventually need replacing, so it's important to have them checked during your service visits. Now, there's a lot of debate over whether it's better to take your vehicle for service to an independent repair shop or to a dealership. Now, there's no question, in most cases, going to an independent repair shop is going to be a lot less expensive than going to a dealership because they typically have lower overhead and lower labor rates, so you could save yourself a lot of money in the long run. But even though dealerships are typically more expensive for service than independent repair shops, there is a benefit to a dealer, at least for the first few years of a new vehicle when it's still under warranty. And the benefit of going to the dealership for the first few years is that you build a relationship with the dealership during that crucial time under the warranty period. So if you ever need a warranty claim, or if you have a problem that's not covered by warranty or has just passed the warranty period, the dealership is easier to deal with and is more likely to work with you to get all of these issues taken care of. It is more challenging in general to do that if you've never taken your vehicle to the dealership at all. But if you still want to take your vehicle to an independent repair shop to save money on service, there is absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. It will not void your warranty at all, despite what some may say. As long as the shop is reputable, they know what they're doing, they're using the correct parts, the correct fluids, and you keep your documentation. Keep all your service receipts so that you have them just in case something happens down the road. You should be perfectly fine. Now, what about getting upsold or the practice of upselling? What do you need to know when it comes to that? Well, we'll get to that in a moment, but first, it's also important to understand your rights when purchasing any vehicle from a dealership. In Ontario, dealers are regulated by OMVIC and must follow certain rules under the Motor Vehicle Dealers Act. For example, dealers must disclose certain things about a vehicle they sell, such as whether it's been involved in a serious collision or whether it has any major mechanical defects that might make you think twice about buying. But it's important to understand that you can only take advantage of these protections if you buy a vehicle from a registered dealership. You don't have the same protection when you buy a vehicle from a private sale. So to learn more about your consumer protection rights and to access free car buying resources, just visit the OMVIC website. I'll put more information in the description below. Now, as mentioned, regardless of whether you take your vehicle to a dealer or an independent repair shop, you need to be careful and make sure that you are not getting upsold or overcharged for things that you don't need. For example, when you take your vehicle in for service, it's very common for the shop or dealer to come back to you and tell you that you need to have this done or you need to have that done. And oftentimes, a lot of it can just be a lot of checking this and inspecting that, which could add up and end up costing a lot of money. And oftentimes, it doesn't really involve a whole lot of replacing this or draining and filling that. All of these types of inspections where you're just doing all kinds of checks, they can be very expensive, but they're really not a lot of work or very difficult for the dealership to do. which is why it's important to always read your owner's manual carefully and understand what the maintenance requirements in the maintenance schedule are, so that you're not being upsold and being told you need things that are above and beyond what's written there. And anytime a shop or dealership tells you that you need to have certain things done, you should always question them and ask, why is that the case? Can you show me evidence? Can you show me the old parts? And don't be afraid to ask around and get a second opinion just to make sure. Again, the maintenance recommendations in this video are designed for those who want their vehicle to last as long as possible and prevent costly breakdowns, which is why some of the fluid changes might be more frequent than what's in the manufacturer's recommendations. And if you're not a long-term person, if you're only planning to keep your vehicle for the first 4 to 5 years under warranty, or if you're only leasing the vehicle and you plan to return your vehicle at the end of the lease, well then there's no sense in going above and beyond what's recommended in the owner's manual. Following the manufacturer recommendations is perfectly adequate. And one important thing to keep in mind, if you're shopping for a used vehicle, it's always best to only purchase one that comes with documented service history, so you can confirm that it was maintained properly. Buying a vehicle that has documented service history is a really good indicator of how well taken care of that vehicle is and how caring the previous owner was. You can always get that information by checking the vehicle history report or asking for service records so you can confirm whether the vehicle's been maintained properly. If you buy a used vehicle that doesn't have any documented service history whatsoever, you have no idea of whether that vehicle was maintained properly or not. And if you run into a problem later on, especially a problem that's still under warranty, you might find that you're not covered by the warranty if you cannot prove and demonstrate that the vehicle was maintained in accordance with the maintenance schedule in the owner's manual. So having that documentation always extremely important, something to be aware of. So there you go. I hope this information was valuable and useful. And if you did get value and enjoyed this video, make sure to like and subscribe. You can also take a look at my other videos by clicking the links up in the corner. You can follow me on Instagram. And if you need any additional car buying advice, recommendations, or help with getting a great deal on your next new car purchase, make sure to visit carhelpcanada.com. Thanks so much for watching and see you next time.